Hey, David, you're really early. Do you have a question for me, or you just early um, today?
Battery, 90%.
Okay, hi everybody. So welcome to CISC121, Introduction to Computer Science #1. I'm Dr. Burton Ma. I'm going to be your instructor this term. Hang on. Okay, you're going to hear a lot of beeping, I think, in the background because people are coming into this meeting through the lobby, and I have to admit them all manually. Okay. So this is the first meeting of the course. I just wanted to hold this meeting to say hello and to introduce you to what's going on in this course. Where did my, sorry, just a second here. Oh, wait, there we go. Okay, I'm sure by now you've all found the course on Cube. So hopefully you've had a chance to look at this. If you haven't, you should look at it soon. So right now I'm in the course description and requirements part. You should have seen by now that the course is basically going to follow, well, it's going to follow a textbook for the most part. Sorry, just hang on. I'm getting an echo here, just a second here. I think it's because, okay. Right. Who is not got a microphone? Hold on, while I deal with this. Okay. So we're basically following a textbook, and I'm going to talk about the textbook shortly. You might think that this is a Python course. It's not really a Python course. It just happens to be a course that uses Python. It's really Introduction to Computing Science, which means it's basically a course that introduces you to, I guess, 2 or 3 of the most important topics in computer science. So that's basically, it's not so much programming. We just need programming to actually study the material. So we're going to be looking at algorithms, in particular sorting and searching, right? So algorithms is one of the fundamental aspects of computing science. We're going to look at data structures, which is the second fundamental aspect of computing science. We're going to look at a programming technique called recursion. And along the way, we're going to also try to teach you more. So we're going to try to teach you how to develop code in a principled fashion, right? Now, I think a lot of you have taken CISC101. If you've taken CISC101, I've got good news for you. The first 3 weeks of the course, roughly, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, possibly even more, are going to be review for you, because you've already done a lot of, you've already done quite a bit of Python programming, especially if you took it last term, from what I'm told. Now, you don't need to have taken a programming course before to have gotten into this course, but it is assumed, right? It's assumed students have some prior experience in programming. No one actually checks. So it's possible that some, many, I don't know, a significant fraction of you haven't done a lot of programming, which is why I need to go back and introduce Python. The basics of Python in the first 3 to 4, hopefully only 3 weeks of the course. So the first 3 weeks of the course, we're going to be looking at, well, you've seen week 1 already. So we're going to be looking at things like, variables, using arithmetic, the basic types in Python. Then we're going to look at we're going to be looking at control structures. So if statements and loops, functions, and lists. And hopefully we'll get through that the first 3 weeks. You can see here the learning outcomes. So programming is really only number 1. The other 4 are basically the computing science stuff. So we're going to be looking at that. The textbook you do not have to purchase because the library makes it available to you for free online. You can buy it, so you can get it from Amazon or Indigo. Unlike most textbooks, it's actually not very expensive. I think if you want a hard copy, it's about $60 or $70 if you want one. The grading scheme is here. It's not complete, but I think it's going to be approximately 3 quizzes. There will be, I think, 5 assignments, and there will be an exam. The exam weight is not very heavy. It'd be around 30 or 35%, or thereabouts, roughly. So I'll finalize the grading scheme later this week. And so that's it for the administration part, for the most part. So I'd like to, so most of you already know that the university has said to professors and hopefully students that the number of what they call synchronous sessions should be minimized. So a synchronous session is basically something that's scheduled at a time, which is why there's no scheduled lecture time in this course. Now that makes it extremely difficult for me to arrange a time to meet. So basically I'm just going to pick a time, and it's probably going to be today between 1 and 2 or 1:30 and 2:30 or something like that. Where we can meet weekly. I'm not going to lecture a lot because you'll see shortly that the textbook's pretty thorough actually. But in addition to the textbook, I'm going to show you something else in a minute. I'm going to add additional notes and commentary in the form of what's called a Jupyter notebook. So I'll show you that in a minute. If you've programmed in Python before, especially if you've taken CISC121, you've already used idle. So idle is the default Python editor that comes with a standard Python installation. Now, if you haven't used idle before, I'm going to very quickly, right now, use it to show you how to create a little program in Python. So if you've taken CISC101, you can ignore me for a little bit. Okay, so this is Python. This is idle. So this is what you see when you open up idle. If you're running in Windows, it'll be under Python idle. So there's your Python editor. The default version of idle looks like this, right? You can configure it to look like how you want. You see that there's these 3 greater than signs. So Python's what's called Python can be used as an interactive language, which means you can just type stuff into this window right here, and Python will actually interpret what you're writing and run the code when you press enter. So for example, I can do something like print hello world. Press enter, and it prints out hello world. The textbook doesn't really expect you to work in the interactive mode. It's useful, working in interactive mode is useful for quickly testing things out, but the textbook is basically expecting you to do something different. So the textbook is expecting you to create a new file every time, or open an existing file. So when you open a new file, you just get this editor here, right? So it's just a text editor, and that's all a Python program is. It's just text. The text happens to be written in this language called Python. The first exercise in the textbook basically is the hello world hello world program. So you can create the hello world program just by typing in what I typed in the other window. Right, and then you save it. Save as. Now, when you're saving your work, you should be putting it somewhere. So you should make a folder somewhere on your computer. right? So either under Documents, which I think I have here, CISC121, right? And you should put them, you should organize them somewhere. So I'm just going to put this into week 1, right? And you can see I already have Hello Pi here. I'm just going to overwrite it. Sorry. Right. And there's your program. So the textbook expects you to run your programs either by doing this, run module. You can see over here it prints out something, or you'll see later on. Whoops, sorry. Hang on. When it asks, so there's in chapter 1 there are some examples where you run Python from the command line, and so in Windows you're going to open up a command window. Windows accessories. Oh, is it not here? Sorry, CMD. There it is. So the textbook is actually expecting you to do something like this. So you can see my command window is in C users Burton, right? I have to switch into wherever this is. So this is actually C users Burton document CISC121 week 1. So you have to switch into that directory, which you do by using the cd command. If you've installed the software already, you've already done something like this. So we go on. If you type dir list the contents of the directory, you can see Hello Pi is here. Right. So the other way to run your program is to call Python from this command prompt. So Python Hello Pi, and you can see when you run it, it spits out Hello World here. And this is actually the way the textbook is expecting you to run many of its examples. So let me go back to the textbook now. Here we go. Okay, so the textbook, the link, if you haven't clicked on it, is here. So that'll take you to the library page. On the library page, you click this thing here, and make sure you read the instruction here, right? So when you click on that link, you'll get a little, you'll get a web page that asks you what institution you are. Queen's University is not listed as one of those institutions. So you have to click not listed, click here, and then you log in with your Queen's net ID, and you'll get this book here. Okay, so I want to go to, let's see, so let's look at the table of contents quickly. So the first week, you're basically doing 1.1 and up to, well, somewhere in 1.2. I don't expect you to actually finish all of 1.2 because it's actually quite a bit of reading and exercises that you have to do to get through this. You should try to get through as much as 1.2 as you can, though. Next week will be 1.3. And then 1.4 will probably be the week after. And by that point, you will be more or less ready to actually do some interesting Python programming. So that's basically the first 3 weeks is we're going to try to get through all this stuff here. After that, we're going to be looking at chapter 2, functions and modules. So that's basically how to organize your program. We'll be doing some other stuff here that's not in the textbook, but that's a little ways away. Eventually, we'll be looking at recursion. And we're not doing chapter 3. Chapter 3 is CISC124 in a different language. We'll be eventually doing some stuff in chapter 4, so algorithms and data structures. In particular, we're doing a lot of searching and sorting stuff. So of course, we're not covering the entire textbook because it's actually a big textbook. Let me quickly go jump into chapter 1. And I'll show you what I meant by why the textbook expects you to, oh, he's in, okay. Why the textbook expects you to, here. So there's this little program here called userargument.py. So I'm just going to create that now. Okay, you can just copy that in Python. Just make a new file, paste it in here, save it. What's it called? User argument. Oh, and doesn't remember where. Okay, so it doesn't remember where I want to be. Okay, CISC121, week 1. So it's just user argument.py. Right, okay, so over here, the textbook is expecting you to run. So whenever you see something like this with a little % sign, they're expecting you to run it in a command window here. So if I copy that, can I paste into here? Oh, I can, okay. Whoop. Oh, hey, look at that. Cannot open user, oh, haha, I called it the wrong name. Hang on, user argument, there we go. Hi Alice, how are you? Right, so that's how the program is that's how the textbook is basically expecting you to run most of its programs. You can run it from things that take in the user argument. I don't think you can run from. I don't think there's an easy way to run it from here. I think it's gonna barf. Yeah, it's gonna barf. So when you try to run this in idle directly, it barfs because this particular program reads in something from the what's called the standard input. Sorry, from the command line. So when I'm typing things in the command prompt, this is called the command line. So Python, that's the Python compiler / interpreter. User argument pi, that's the name of the program I'm running. Anything you type after that, those are what are called command line arguments, and that's what's accessed with that line of that little bit of code right there. And a lot of the textbook programs are written in this fashion. Okay, so you have to get used to running things from the command prompt. If you're in Mac, your command prompt is just the terminal. Okay, if you're in Linux, you already know what I'm talking about. Okay, so that's the text. Okay, that's the textbook. Now, when you're reading the textbook, there's parts of the textbook that I like to either emphasize or add material to. So later today, you're going to on the on queue, the on queue will be updated to include this file here. So the way I distribute additional material to you is mostly through what are called Jupyter notebooks. So Jupyter is a platform for providing online online documents that can contain embedded code. Most Jupyter notebooks use Python as the code that's embedded. And so by embedded, I mean you can actually run the code inside of Jupyter. Right? So you can write Python code in this document and have it run. So I'll show you that in just a second here. Well, why don't I show you that now? So I'm gonna, here. So whenever you see a gray box in the Jupyter notebooks, this is something that you can run. This is the Hello World program that the textbook provides for you. I'll explain this in a minute, okay? I just want to show you right now that you can actually run this thing inside the notebook itself. You can also edit the code inside the notebook. So I can press that run button and you can see Hello World appears here, right? Now this is basically a document it's just a document. So you can edit this inside of Jupyter. And Jupyter just runs in your web browser. So here's the version of Hello World that I showed you. You can run that, right? But you can edit it as well, right? So you can change it to do something else and then you can run it, right? You can introduce errors if you want and run that and see what happens, right? Notice that you get an error here because, because you actually need, right? So hello world inside a pair of single or double quotes is in Python is called a string, right? And so you need a complete string, literal here, to actually have this, to actually have Python run this, interpret this correctly and run it. And it's not just code that you can add to this notebook. If you are reading the notebook and you want to make a note to yourself, you can add notes to the notebook, right? So for example, here I've just played around with it and I've seen that if I remove one of the single quotes, I can get an error, right? I can make a note to myself by inserting a cell. And here, I can change the cell to a markdown cell. And I can make a note to myself. If I remove a, then And you can, and then if you want, yes, if you're running these locally on your machine, you can actually save the notebook, right? And so you have a permanent record of your, the notebook. Now you don't have to run this on your own machine. So I'm going to initially provide you the notebook for this week online. So you can look at it just online. If you make notes online, they don't save online. So that's one of the disadvantages, but you can still run everything and edit it. Right, so you can still run the code and edit the code and so on and so forth. And so the way the notebook is arranged is it matches up to the textbook sections, right? So anywhere in the textbook where I think it's useful to have some additional explanation, or there should be some additional material, you'll get a corresponding section in the notes, in the notebook. So here, executing a program, right? If you go back to the notebook, to the textbook, and you find, so here's 1.1, your first program. And if you look for, here, executing a program, right? The notebook section here corresponds to the textbook section here, right? And so my note here is that, what is it? Here, when the authors are talking about Python as an interpreted or compiled language, right? I have a little bit of extra exposition here, right? Sorry if you can hear my cat. Just ignore. Also in the notebooks, there are additional exercises, right? So the textbook has a bunch of exercises which you really should do, but the notebook introduces extra exercises where I think they might be useful. Right, and you can do the exercises straight in the notebook. Right, so this one asks you to create a one-line program that prints your name. So that's easy. It's just print, and you can run it, and voila, there's your output. Right, and so there's a spelling error here. That's extra. Oh, there's one here too. Cut and paste. Okay, and so there are exercises embedded in the notebook as well that basically ask you to write some Python code. Now, if you've taken 101 and you're reading the textbook, your first reaction should be, what on earth is standard I/O write line? What is this nonsense? Right? Because in 101, you almost certainly used print. Right? And so what's going on is that the textbook was written at a time when Python was changing from Python 2 to Python 3. So there was a major version change not so long ago in Python. So this course uses Python 3. Now, one of the big problems with changing from Python 2 to Python 3 was that this function print changed from Python 2 to Python 3. So the textbook authors created their own functions to deal with these changes to make sure that their textbook would work in Python 2 and Python 3, which is why there's this funny standard I/O package that you have to import if you're using the textbook code to print out or to read something in. Right. So whenever you see standard IO.WriteLine, you can actually replace that with print. Okay. And if you are, and I would actually encourage you to switch to print rather than doing standard IO.WriteLine. If you search online, you'll actually find Stack Overflow posts asking about what on earth is standard IO.WriteLine. And it's because there are students who are using this textbook who are puzzled as to why they're not using print, right? Because standard IO.WriteLine is not a standard Python function, right? Now, having said that, oops, what's going on? Having said that, someone have a question? Conversation. Oh, hello. I unfortunately was gone for a little bit at the beginning. Would we be marking activities existing? Okay, so let me, I'll answer that in just a second. What have we got here? Right, so that's the that's probably the one. Well, that's one of two things that you'll notice coming from CISC121, is that they're always using standard IO.write or standard IO.WriteLine. Just use print. If they're using write, you can use print this way here, right? The other thing you'll notice is way down here. Variables, yes. Okay, so for reasons that are unknown to me, the textbook makes the unfortunate choice of naming their variables in a convention called lower Camelcase. So lower Camelcase is when you have a variable name that's made up of more than one word, right? So here I have total slices, right? So there's 2 words in that variable name. You can't put a space in the variable name, so you have to mash all the words together somehow. The textbook uses, the textbook always starts the first word with a lowercase letter, which is good. But they make every starting letter, they make the starting letter of every subsequent word a capital, right? So that's called lower Camelcase. That's not the recommended code style convention in Python. So the recommended code style convention in Python is something called PEP8. If you click on that link, it'll take you to the it'll take you there. And so in Python, and hopefully they taught you this in 101, the preferred way of writing variables is this way. So if you have a multi-word variable, you should insert an underscore between the words, and everything should be in lowercase. So that's the other weird thing you'll notice right away if you're a Python programmer already when you're reading the textbook. Right. Other than that, the textbook is fine, I think. Okay, so there were some questions in chat. Let me see if I can. Okay, so first question is, will we be marked on activities that exist in the notebook? No, you're not being marked on activities in the notebook, right? The activities in the notebook are here to help you learn. The exercises in the textbook are there to help you learn. The only way you can learn programming is to actually program. So it would be in your best interests to actually attempt the exercises in the textbook and the exercises that are in the notebook. For the Jupyter notebooks, I will provide solutions. For the textbook, what's going on here? Are there a bunch of people? Hold on. Oh. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm just, I have to keep on letting people in from the lobby because for some reason they're coming in through the lobby instead of coming in normally. Is he in? Come on, let him in. Okay. Whoa, hang on. All right, so question 2. Is there any place where we can find the answers for the questions in the textbook? Okay, so the textbook has a website. Princeton, where is it? Oh, okay. Click on chapter 1. First of all our source code is here, so you can just click on their source code and take a look at it. And where is it? Let's click here. If you scroll down to here, a lot of their questions have answers in the web page. They're not all here, but a lot of them are here. So floating point numbers. Where are their exercises? I just want to quickly go to that. Here you go. So if you try to do their exercises, a lot of their exercises have solutions. Not all of them have solutions, but a lot of them have solutions. Can you find them anywhere else? I don't know. You'll have to use your search engine to find out if you can find them somewhere else. Yeah, I don't even know if I don't believe there's even an instructor copy of this textbook. So I certainly don't have the answers for them. Okay, if we use print instead of standard IO and idle, it should work, right? Yeah, idle is fine, right? Idle is basically whatever version of Python you're running is fine. Anything above Python 3.0, I think, is fine, right? Oh yeah, so if you don't, Python 3.6 is fine. You can download a more recent version of Python if you want. It'll be fine. So the most recent one I think is 3.9. If you install that, everything should be fine. Will marks be taken off if we use Camelcase? Is it a choice or mandatory to use PEP8? No, you're not going to be docked marks for using Camelcase, but you should be consistent in how you name, right? So don't mix Camelcase and the underscores, right? You don't have to use PEP8. If you click on PEP8, is it here? Yeah. Where is it? Here we go. A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds, right? So these coding conventions are recommendations, right? If you go to work for a company, then you have to follow whatever the company's doing. Otherwise, someone will have something to say to you. In the course, I mean, if you choose Camelcase instead of using underscores, I don't really care. I just want you to be consistent, right? So it's best, but yes, I mean, so look, if you're planning on learning to program in Python, most Python programmers use the underscore. So you should do what most Python programmers do. Java is different. So when you take 124, you learn Java. In Java, most programmers use Camelcase, so you should switch back to Camelcase, right? When you're programming, you have to remember that you're not just writing code for yourself, you're writing code for other programmers, right? So if you're programming in Python, you should write code that most Python programmers will recognize. If you're programming in Java, you should write code that most Java programmers will recognize. When we code for assignments, do we use the style code for coding in the terminal window or the code for the idle window? When we code for assignments, should we use? I mean, it's not really a style. It's basically providing different functionality. So if the assignment asks you to write a program where you have to read things in from the command line, then you have to use the textbook convention, right? Is it okay to use Py? Yes, you can use whatever editor you want, right? You can use PyCharm, you can use Visual Studio Code, you can use idle, but everything that I generate content for will be assuming you're using idle, right? So when I talk about debugging code using the debugger, I'm going to do it in idle. I'm not going to be doing it in PyCharm. In the future, this course may switch to PyCharm because it can do a lot more than idle can do. But for now, it's all idle. Do we need to use idle? Does processing work? I'm not familiar with processing. I don't know if processing is fully Python compliant. So I don't know. If you've installed Python, though, you already have idle. So that's my answer to that question. Will you post any videos or slides on OnQ to help us understand what the, well, I mean, I just said the notebooks are here, so no, right? You're gonna get the notebooks, right? The notebooks are my exposition on the textbook, right? There will be videos where I think videos are appropriate, right? So there, sometime later this week, there will be a video that shows you what I just did in idle, right? So when we talk about debugging, there will be videos that show you how to debug in idle, right? But the additional notes, they're not in the form of PowerPoint, right? They're in the form of these Jupyter notebooks. When will the dates of the quizzes and assignments be posted? Shortly. I don't know exactly. Probably by the end of this week. I've generally wrote and executed code through Visual Studio Code. Should I get used to calling a program through the command line? Visual Studio Code almost certainly has a command prompt in it. I haven't used it enough to be familiar with it, but you can almost certainly have a command prompt in Visual Studio Code that you can use like this. Right? So hopefully that answers your question, Will. Does the IDE we use matter? No, the IDE does not matter. But as again, I have to repeat myself. All the content I generate is going to assume that we're using idle. Right? So is there a late assignment policy or a grace period applicable in the class? Unknown. So the problem with late assignments, and I ran into this problem last term, is that if you let students hand in work late, it delays the amount of time that you can actually put up the solution. So, if you give a week extension, basically that means the solution doesn't go up for a week. Any late policy will be posted as part of the assignment. Okay. For the quizzes and stuff, there's always so for the online quizzes that you'll be taking in OnQ, and for the exam, there's always a grace period. I think for the quizzes, it's normally 5 minutes is what I give you extra, where you can spend the time, hopefully, trying to submit your work. How to Ying Ying? You did not answer. You did not finish your question. And Alex, will there be a scheduled lecture to attend every week? Yeah. So yes, there's going to be. I would like a weekly meeting time. So last term, I didn't have any regular meeting times with the students because we were told by the university to have everything asynchronous. I think it worked for. I think it was okay for most students. There were some students who were very unhappy with that. So I think I will try to schedule a weekly meeting. Yes, the weekly meetings will be recorded. So let me explain what the problem with the weekly meetings is. Students are all over the world. So there's students in China, there's students in Europe. And that basically means if you schedule a time like now, it's like 3 in the morning for some of them or very late at night for some of them. Right? So you can't really schedule. That's why the university told us not to schedule any synchronous activities, is because there's going to be a bunch of students who are disadvantaged. And there's nothing worse than having to deal with a disadvantaged student. So that's why we're told don't have any synchronous sessions. But I mean, it seems like there are a lot of students who want the synchronous sessions. So there will be synchronous sessions that I will have to schedule somehow. Same question for the doubt question. For the doubt sessions. Same question for the, oh, do you mean office hours? Yes, there's scheduled office hours. The office hours aren't recorded. Your TAs, every TA in the course will have 1 hour of office hours per week where you can go and ask them questions. I have scheduled office hours as well. I don't remember what I made them for this course, but I have scheduled office hours. They're on the homepage. Apparently mine are Thursday from 2 to 3. Everything is done on Teams, right? So everything's virtual. So you're going to be, you're going to get an invite. So it's going to be annoying. So you're going to get like, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You're going to get like 8 invites when I schedule these in Teams, right? For the different TAs. You don't have to accept or deny them, right? You don't have to bother clicking accept. You don't have to bother clicking deny or refuse or whatever it's called, right? You just, just, delete the reminder if you want to. But yes, there are scheduled TA hours. Yeah, there are scheduled office hours.
Professor Ma, may I interject?
Yeah,
I don't know
sure.
if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hi, sorry. I for some reason on my Teams I have access to the microphone, but I don't have my chat option is actually denied to me. Not sure why that is. It says I'm just not a member.
I don't know why it's denied you either.
So
it's because you're.
Sorry, go ahead. Somebody's answer that.
It's because you're a guest. I'm actually a guest as well, and I don't have access to the chat. So I'm assuming that if you can sign in with your Queen's account as you're accessing the meeting, you'll get access to the chat.
Oh, I did go through the Queen's.
There.
Yeah, I went through. Anyway, I'm sure this will work fine for now.
Okay. So anyway, question.
So yeah, my questions were, well, first, thanks for explaining that difference between the standard I/O and print. I was really confused at first. I was like, why isn't print here? Makes sense. Thank you for that. And thanks for explaining the office hours, the lecture schedule, or rather lack thereof. My 2 questions are quite simple. First of all, I've just historically used a French-Canadian keyboard, like the standard CSA. I'm wondering if in the future, as coding gets more complicated, that'll create some issues with not having overlap between keys, and if I should just switch to a fully English keyboard.
I don't think it's going to cause a problem for you in this course.
I'm just wondering if I should just get in the habit of, like, the way I type, I have learned over the past decade or whatever to just use a French Canadian keyboard. So, and some of the keys are different in terms of like accents or characters. I don't know if you've ever had any experience with that problem, or if you just use an English keyboard, like an American.
I use an English keyboard. I'm just trying to think of if there's any symbols that are used, commonly used in the Python language that would not immediately appear on a French language keyboard. The answer is I don't think so.
Okay.
So I don't believe it's going to cause you any problems.
All right, great. And I'm also one of the Mac users. I don't know if that makes me one of the minority in the course, or if most people.
Well, it's not a big minority.
Okay. So most people would be operating off of either Linux or Windows PC-based platform?
I suspect it's something like 70-30 Windows Mac.
Okay. Now, I'm one of those students that you were referring to who actually did not take 101 prior to this. So I'm coming in having only had coding experience in HTML for like at work or in ARP, like statistics programming for my biology studies. So I'm wondering how different the Mac terminal is to the command prompt in the PC platform.
So
like in terms of me just trying.
They're the same. Superficially, they're the same. The way you use, but some of the commands are different. So when I type dir, for example, in the Windows command prompt, in Mac you're going to be typing ls, little l, little s, right?
Okay.
That's, I mean, so the commands will be slightly different. When you call Python, it's exactly the same. So when you write Python, use argument Alice, it's exactly the same. Okay.
And because I'm just wondering, in my terminal, I keep getting, whenever I type in Python, it's always prompting me with, I guess the MacBook has a built-in Python 2, and I have the Python 3.9, so I'm wondering if that's creating
that is an issue. You want to be making sure for this course you're using Python 3.
I am using the 3.9 version, but when I type in, for example, Python in my terminal, I just get Python 2 warning. Python 2.7 is not recommended.
Right. Okay. So you need to.
Have you tried typing Python 3?
I was going to say you have to type Python 3.
I type Python 3, but then I get I don't know if this is an issue, but it says traceback most recent call last file standard in line 1 of module name error. Name Python 3 is not defined.
Okay, so I'm assuming this is something I have to deal with. So this is something we should deal with outside of this time.
Okay, I'd appreciate that.
With everybody. Okay, so send me an email and we'll try to arrange a time to deal with this.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Wow, there's a lot of questions. This is amazing. All right, so where am I? Weekly meetings, right. Same question, right. Okay, if I use something like PyCharm, well, I still need to download the book site. Yes, if you use PyCharm, you still have to install the book site library. If you want to make sure that the book examples work, there's no reason, if you're a reasonably good Python programmer, there's no reason you can't, there's no reason that you can't, so you can just ignore the book site libraries and replace their function calls with your own, if you wanted to do it that way. Sorry, you might have answered this. Do we have or get solutions to textbook? The textbook, I'll put a note on the, I'll put an announcement in the on the on-queue. There are some answers for the textbook exercises, not all of them. Who can we have contact if we have difficulties accessing the textbook? You should contact the library, and they should help you. You shouldn't have any difficulties accessing the textbook, though. So if click on that link and follow the instructions. Oops, sorry, and follow the instructions right here. Right, and you should be able to sign in with your Queen's Net ID. Okay, do we have a discussion forum? Yes, I'm going to make some discussion forums. I haven't got around to it yet. When will all the assignments be posted? Well, assignment 1 will be posted shortly, but I'm not going to post them all at once because they're not done yet. Where will the Jupyter Notebook stuff be posted? On the on-queue under. So for each week. Oh, I guess I should have explained that. You should look for content here. Boop, under the weekly schedule. Right. So in week 1, there will be something here or here. I don't know. It'll be down. You'll be able to find it. It'll be in the week 1 stuff. Python 3.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to clarify. It's not on there yet, right? Yeah. You're going to put it on?
Yeah, I'm going to put it on there.
Okay, thank you. I thought it was already on there, so I was confused.
No. It'll be there soon. It'll be there soon.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you have to use Python 3. Yes, you have to use Python 3. You have to. Oh, I think you guys are talking to one another. You can definitely get PyCharm on Mac. You can absolutely get PyCharm on Mac. Okay, great. Now, did someone other? Oh, sorry, that's not me. What did? Ken? Oh, sorry, Ken. You still have your hand up. Do you have a question still? It's actually hard for me to see hands because there's like.
Sorry, I didn't realize the professor would not take down the hand. Sorry.
Okay. No, I can't. I mean, so I don't know how many people are on this call. There's 126 on this call, which is actually only half the students in this course. I can't see all 126 of you at once. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we've actually gone longer than I was expecting, which is fine. Are there any other questions?
May I just ask who it was who tried to answer one of my questions before or help with the messaging? There was some other student in the course. Just want to get his name. If he's still around.
That was me, Curtis.
Curtis?
Okay,
Yes.
Thanks so much, Curtis. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Will in Chicago, you still have your hand up. I don't know if you have a question or not.
Yeah, I have a question. I put it in chat, but I'll quickly ask it too. Will there be any like assignments or quizzes that ask for us to use the sys.argument to get arguments from the command line, or can we use like the input function like we would in CISC121?
Yeah, so I was afraid that so the textbook does eventually get around to going to using the input. So when you're reading from standard input, probably like you did in 101, you're basically creating an interactive program, right? So you're gonna display a prompt, the user types something in, you display another prompt, the user types something in, and stuff like that. You should. I understand why people teach programming that way. You should really start to move away from that sort of thinking. Almost no program in the real world works that way. So it's actually really annoying so it's really funny because when you ask questions on assignments or on quizzes, so for example, you might ask a student to write a function that takes in some number and computes some result, right? And then inside their function, they're going to be using standard I/O to ask the user for some value, but that's not the point of the question, right? The point of the question is make a function that's got a parameter that's a number, and then you do something with the parameter. So unless the quiz or test question specifically asks you to use specifically asks you to read in the command from the to read in user input from standard input, you should not read in user input from standard input, right? So I hope that answers your question. You cannot easily, well, I mean, you can change the textbook examples to read in stuff if you know how to do that. But the textbook intentionally avoids doing that in chapter 1. Okay, yeah, Chicago. Wow, there's a lot of questions. Chicago, what's up?
Where are you going to be uploading like these streams? Like, are they going to be on OnQ?
Yeah, they'll be on OnQ, and I'll put them in. And I'll put it, for example, in week 1. Right? All right. So today's meeting will be here.
Thanks.
All right. Next week's will be in week 2. The week after will be in week 3. Cash.
Hi everybody. So I had a question. For example, on OnQ, when we'll be having quizzes or assignments. So most probably in the quizzes we have to type the answers on our own, right? And so will the inbuilt libraries be there in the OnQ?
Will the textbook libraries be there?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
So if the questions will make clear whether or not you should be using your.
Because we are referring to the textbook, right? And the textbook explains us in the way where we have to use the packages which were given by the textbook itself.
Yeah. So the question or the quiz question or exam question will tell you whether or not you should be using the textbook library. When they're marked, they're not marked. So when your programming stuff's marked, we don't mark it in OnQ. It gets pulled out of OnQ, and then we mark it inside of either idle or PyCharm or something like that. So, because I mean, OnQ doesn't know anything about Python, right? OnQ you can submit whatever file you want. OnQ doesn't care. So nothing's actually marked inside of OnQ directly. It's all marked outside of OnQ inside of a actual Python environment.
So whenever we are submitting our assignments, is it like supposed to be just like the code itself or something? Like we don't have to send the actual files, right? We just have to send the snippet of the codes.
Oh, no. So for an assignment, you'll be asked to upload your Python source code, right?
Oh,
so submit file a1.py, a2.py, or a1 part1.py, or whatever it's called, right? You'll be asked to submit those files for the assignments. For quizzes, it's possible to do the same thing for quizzes, although you probably you may or may not have seen that. OnQ will let you upload, will let me create a question that lets you upload a file. So the problem.
So that question will be already made in such a way that the files can be uploaded in the .py format.
In .py, yes, possibly. I mean, otherwise, I mean, so it depends on what the question is, right? So, if the question is just, the question might ask you, write one line of Python that does blah, then you should just type the one line of Python in the window that's given in OnQ.
Oh, all right, yeah.
Right. Now the problem with OnQ is, and the problem with Python and OnQ is that Python uses spacing for indents, and OnQ eats the spacing. So
exactly. So that was my question.
Yeah.
Because
No,
a lot of features are not supported on OnQ, and that's a real difficulty when you actually type out the assignments or whenever you type out the quizzes.
Yeah. So you don't. I mean, you shouldn't expect to be typing in all your source code into an OnQ window.
All right.
Yeah. If you, yes. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, we're well aware of this problem. Okay.
All right.
Any other questions?
Professor Ma, I'm just curious, are you using Salesforce backgrounds of London and California for your desktop?
For what?
Oh, just the images. They look like the Salesforce artwork for...
The images in OnQ?
No, in your desktop background.
Oh, the desktop background. I don't know. It's whatever Windows.
Oh, and it just looks like the artwork that Salesforce.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. It's whatever Windows 10 defaulted to. So
okay.
Yeah, and it changes regularly. So I don't know. All right. Any other questions? Because I have to go to CISC124 now. All right. So look out for many OnQ updates this week, and hopefully I'll see you sometime next week. Okay. Thanks, everybody. I got to leave.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. How do I stop recording? There we go.